So in the last chapter, we looked at modeling the steering wheel, the spokes for the steering wheel, and also these cables that you can see here that connect to the throttle and the brake. We also looked at how we could actually make these cables into twisted metal by using the twist feature of the Loft compound object. What we're going to do in this chapter is we're going to build the tires and the wheel hubs. These are relatively simple to do as long as you follow the usual kind of principles that I've shown you in this DVD so far and in the last few chapters. The first thing we need to create is a hub which actually fits around this basic hub that we have here. This is metal. And we have another hub which fits outside this, and onto that hub we then fit the tire and also anything else that is needed in the cart. So let's create that first. We need some kind of radius for that. So let's have a look at the radius on this here. This is 3.35. So let me just go to the top view. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of build this by using this as the basis. So we'll assume for a start that this is a rectangle. So we'll go for a rectangle here. I'm just going to draw it here because it's actually going to fit on this. Let's say we'll put it here like this. It's going to overhang here quite a lot. So let's just do it like that. And now we're going to work into this and, produce the thing that we need to produce. But in the end, it's going to be lathed. So what we need to do is put the pivot point in the center here. And I'm just going to do this manually. It doesn't have to be super accurate. I'm not going to use the snap tool because this is a three-dimensional object and it may actually snap this in 3D space. So, and that means when we lathe, we're not lathing around the pivot point that we really needed. So there we go. And now I'm going to convert this. I'm going to say turn into an editable spline. Make some minor modifications here. Just want this to align like this, let's say. I'm going to make all of the corners into corner pieces, into corner vertices, just to make editing easier. That means any other vertices that I add will also be corners as well. I want to put a little sort of flange here, a little bevel. So I'm just going to put a point here and a point here. The same thing here and here. I'm going to do the same thing on the outside as well, here and here, and also there and there. I'm going to grab these segments, drag them inward slightly. I think you can get the kind of idea of what I'm talking about here. There we go. And now, what I want to do is on the top surface is I want to create a kind of flange out here, which will hold the tire in place when we create that. All of these things, all of these positions I'm creating, they're all flexible and can be changed later. That's one of the really cool things about spline modeling. You can actually make adjustments long after the fact. So let's say we just pull this out here slightly, make this a bit bigger, a bit more robust. And I think the size of this is actually maybe a little bit too thick at the moment, so I'll just make this like this. What I'm going to do now is make these flanges. So let's just do some more refinements here. So we want here and here. Also we want here and here also. We'll grab these segments here. This segment here and this segment here. Pull it up here slightly. And now the tire will actually fit in here. This will actually hold it in place. I think we need to pull these down here slightly. Do it with vertex adjustments. Pull this down. So slightly. We'll just push this up ever so slightly. Just so it's a little bit more robust. We'll also make this straight. That really holds it in place. There we are. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and basically bevel all of these corners. Let me just go in here. You can see when you're getting close, it isn't actually as straight as you thought it was. So we'll just make a bevel there, bevel there, bevel there, there. This is hidden from view, so we won't bother beveling this. This one also. And we'll do the same down here. We want it there, there, and there. Easiest way to make most of these bevels is to just pull out these segments. So I'm going to just select this one here. change the coordinate system so we get the pivot point in the place we want it to be. Pull this out slightly. Actually, we can do both at the same time. It's probably the best thing to do. There we are. Pull this in. So bevel inwards slightly. And then we'll do the same thing here. Just pull this in slightly. And you can see that here we've got a problem. So let me have a look. Quick investigation of what's going on here. Try moving this around. You can see it's just got its knickers in a twist slightly. Move this down here into position. There we are, that's fine. Back to where it should have been. We can just pull these out now. There we are. So that's the basic profile that we need to make the lathe. Now, we've got the basic hub of the wheel. What we need to do now is we need to create the tire. It's easier to actually create the tire at the same time. Now, the tire needs to be thicker than this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go in towards, here slightly. So let me just add some more geometry to support this. Let's just pull this up here. We'll go up here. This will make the tire a lot thicker. And we'll do the same thing here. Pull this out here slightly. So we get a nice sort of shape out here. We just need to add some more vertices in here to support this change. So we'll just pull this up here slightly. A slightly larger diameter to the wheel. Then we'll just refine this. Refine this here, here. Now we just need to position these, put these into place. That's cool. There we are, got that in position. Now let's try making the tire itself. And as I said, all of these are flexible, you can change these later. So I'm just going to use a rectangle, and I'm just going to draw this out like this. Let's say we have the tire which is that thick for now. And I'm just going to give it a corner radius. We won't want this corner radius down here, so we'll get rid of that in a minute, but don't worry about it for now. And the other thing I want to do is I want to add some tread to the tire. So this flat edge here isn't really going to be very useful for us. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to create one crenellation, as it were, of the tire, and then we're going to repeat that along here to give us some nice tread. So let me just show you how you do that. I think the roundness is actually alright. Let me just try that a bit more. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. It's nice and round at the corner there. So let's just right click here, convert to editable spline, get these segments. We don't really need these anymore, so I'll just get rid of these. Grab this vertex here and pull it down into place. Now I'm just going to adjust this slightly so that we have the wall of the tire bulging out slightly. We'll adjust this as well to take that into account. Actually, let me just change that to Bezier. There we are. We change both at the same time. Do the same thing here. Bezier, adjust outwards slightly, just inwards, so we get this bulge. It looks like the tire is actually under some pressure. And you can see here there's a bit of a gap between here and here. I'll just make a slight adjustment. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And now what we need to do is just create one of these crenellations that I'm talking about. So let's just create one. And so what we need to do is just put some refinements in here. So this will be 1. And we'll start it from here. It'll just go inwards. Just need the base here. I'm actually just building the bevels straight in here. So now I can turn off refine, pull this in. Doesn't need to be very deep. Let's look at the size of the tire. Yeah, I think that's probably enough. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. And I think you can see that with the vertices here, they're actually Bezier, so we're getting some nice curves anyway. I don't really think we need the beveling that I originally planned on, so I can just get rid of these. And I think that's looking pretty cool. Let me just adjust this a little bit more. So we can just press on F8, pull this out here a bit more so we get more curvature. Same here. We'll do the same here and here. There we are. Just pull this up slightly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat this down here. So for this to happen, we really need to have a point where this can connect onto here. So let's refine this kind of distance here. Let's go here. That. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this segment here, and I'm going to say get rid of that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to get this segment here, or rather this group of segments, and we're going to shift copy it down to here. So let's try that. Hold on, shift, drag, and then we'll just put that into place there. It's on the same spot. Yeah. Hold on, shift, drag, on the same spot. I think you can get the idea. If we select all of these together and select that, we can do a lot more in one go. It's a little bit faster to do this. Make sure that's in position, yeah. And again, we can select more, do them all in one go, very quick. Just make sure that that's the end point here joins up. And you can see it's actually not too bad. I mean, we kind of join up here, so just make an adjustment to this final vertex here, put it down into position. Now all we have to do is just weld all these vertices together to make all these segments join up. So just select all of them. There we are. And just zoom in slightly so we can see some of these points. We'll just say weld point 1. I think that did the trick. We zoom out, just select. You can see that we have an endpoint here. We don't have any other endpoints, which means that this is now one spline. We can check that just by clicking on it. There we are, I selected the entire thing, so it shows it's just one continuous spline. And basically we now have the tire. Its pivot point's in the wrong point. We want it to be the same as this, so they both basically lathe around the same spot. So we'll just go into pivot mode, select pivot only. In this case, we are going to use the align option, so align position, make sure that's all okay. Yep, that's great. And now we basically have the tire and the wheel ready to go. So let's give these a try and see what happens. Let's just go to modifiers, go down to lathe, click on lathe. There we are. There's our tire. Do the same thing here. Lathe. There's the inner part of our wheel. Let's go into perspective view and have a look at what it's like. Yeah, you can see we now basically have a little tire and we have an inner hub. Let me just change the wireframe color of that just so you can see it is a different piece of geometry. And all we have to do now is basically align this with this. So to do that, we'll make this tire into a child of the hub. And we'll get the hub and we'll align it to this object here. That's fine. And now we'll just rotate it into position. Go 90 degrees. There we are. Check what it looks like. I think it probably overhangs the inside a little bit too much, so we could probably move it out some. There we are. There we go. And now you can see this overhangs here slightly, so let's just move it out here a bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty cool, I think. Don't you think? Got some nice little details here. This rim here, as you can see, beveled. And it connects to here quite nicely. We can pull it out even more if you want. There we go. We've got this bolt holding the wheel on, and we've got the tire. So that looks pretty cool. Just need to check how many sections we're using in the lathe. You can see that 48 is actually quite a lot, but it's still segmenting a little bit. So I'd probably go for this being 48, but this being, say, 64 maybe. By 64 segments. You can see now it's looking a little bit better. The other thing we need to check is the cross sections of it. In other words, how many lines is being used across here. Yeah, and you can see it's actually being optimized. So we're not wasting polygons on these flat pieces of the tire, as you can see. It's kind of rounded at the edges, which looks nice. Maybe that could be a little bit exaggerated, maybe. And also, on one side of the go-kart, we need some kind of cog for the engine to work on. So we can add that in a second or two. But let me just make some minor adjustments to this tyre before we propagate it to the rest of the car. Let's go back into top view. We'll turn off the modifier for now. And I'll just make some minor adjustments down into the spline. Just make this curve here a little bit more exaggerated. Pull it in here so it doesn't intersect. Same thing over here. A bit more exaggerated. Just this to match. And here. And I think that's fine really. Just turn on the modifier again. Look at it in 3D view. Turn off wireframe for now. And as you can see, pretty cool tyre. Pretty cool hub to the wheel. And now we'll just add that cog and we'll just finish off here. So the cog's actually going to be on the rear left of the go-kart. It's going to be over here. So what we'll do is we'll basically get these objects. We'll copy them over here. For now, let's say copy, because we want to make them different. Move them over here into position. And what I'm going to do now is I want to actually mirror these. So I'm going to use this mirror tool here. I'm just going to say x-axis. Just check this. Looks like it's on the y-axis, so let's try that. Yeah, I think that's correct. So now we can just turn off the modifiers here, and we can see what we're doing. We don't actually have the central hub, so we'll just ignore that for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this extend in here a little bit further, and that's where the actual cog is going to go. So to do that, let's go into the top view, zoom in here. I'm going to make some quite major modifications here, and let's just grab this. We mostly want to leave it as it is, but we just want to make some changes here. So let's just move this down here so it's a little bit thicker. And now I'm going to actually extend something out here, which is where the cog will sit. So we'll just add some refinements. There, 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 and there. And then I'll just grab this innermost segment, pull it out. So we now basically have the place where the cog will sit. Pull that back in a bit. Move this vertex down here so it's nice and flat. This in here doesn't actually have to be flat, but let's say we'll leave it as flat for now. And let's say we don't want this to be quite as robust as it appears here, so we can just refine this slightly. We can say, make this into an L shape. Let's do that. Pull this up here slightly. Oops, wrong vertex. There we are. So now it's an L shape. There we are. And now we'll just create the basic part of the cog, and we'll finish off this cog in the next DVD. Again, it's going to be a spline shape, and we're going to base it on this actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in here, grab this segment. This is where the cog's going to be. I'm going to drag this to here. Let me just shift to drag that. And now what I want to do is I want to detach that into a new object called cog. Okay, that. Select that object. We always selected it. Go into sub-object mode, and now I'm going to build this into the cog. I'll just move this in here slightly. Move this in here slightly. Start doing some refinement. First of all, we'll build it into a box, which is what we need. I'll just put some vertices in here just to refine that. So I'll just move these up here. Move this vertex so it joins up here. Weld that. Then grab these vertices, pull up here until it's a straight line. Move it to here. Now we basically have our box. Doesn't really need to be very thick. I can make it thinner here. So look here, yeah. Adjust this in slightly. Adjust this out here just a little bit until it's near the edge. Now I can actually put the cog in. The cog for now is just going to be a proto cog. We're not actually going to put the cogs on it. We'll do that in the next DVD. So we just need to put some refinements in here, and it needs to be, say, roughly, it doesn't need to be very thick because obviously it needs to have a chain put over it, which will actually drive the wheel. So let's say it's that kind of thickness. And just go here and here, grab this segment, we'll pull it outwards, and now we can make some adjustments here and here, just make this nice and straight. There we are. We can adjust the thickness in the next DVD if needed. I think that looks pretty good for now. And we'll just refine this here to make this a little bit more detailed. So move this into position, refine it here and here. Look at the vertices here, see what we've got. You see that didn't actually refine as I wanted it to, so I'll just do it again. Oh yeah. Move this down into position. Move this inwards. So we have a bevel. Move that down here. Move this up here so we get another bevel. So there you go, we've got our cog. So now we just need to give it the same pivot point as these. So let's just go on here, affect pivot point only, align to here. That's fine. And then what we need to do is just put a lathe modifier on it. There we are. Then we can turn the lathe back on these. You can see now what we've basically got here. This is the cog. At the moment it's maybe a little bit thin. So we'll just make that a little bit larger before we finish off and maybe position it so it's closer to here slightly. So we can just go down here. It's very easy to change. Just select those vertices, pull those out so it's larger, and the positioning isn't quite right, so we'll just select those, move it in towards here slightly. Maybe it's a little bit too thin. Just make it a little bit thicker. And let's say we taper it slightly as well. So it narrows as it gets towards the top. There we are. So that's going to be our cog, which as I said, we'll make a little bit more detailed in the next DVD. But for now, I think it's fine. We'll say that that position for the wheel is absolutely fine for now. So there we have the back two tires on our go-kart. And I think maybe they could be a little bit thicker, but that's easy enough to change. You know, we just need to grab these vertices and pull them out slightly. So we can just do that and grab these, pull it out slightly like that. Yeah, and you can do the same for the other side, obviously. The easiest thing to do in this case would be just to duplicate it, I think. Copy it, put it over there, mirror it on Y, get rid of this tire, put it into position, turn off the lathe modifier for now, so you can just position it. Put it in there so it fits between the two rims there. Turn the lathe back on. There you are. Back in position. And you can very easily obviously duplicate this, and because we've got the center point selected and this is a child of it, we can just double click on the center hub and we can shift, move it up here. You cancel that. We didn't quite get the selection I was after, which is double click on here. There we are. Got everything now. Shift drag it up here. And we'll say instance. Get rid of this tire. Actually give me that one as well. There we are. And now you can just basically align this to this. Now in this case I don't want to align it on all axes and rotate it and whatever again. I just want to move it so it fits along this axis here. So I can just say align, click on here, turn off most of the options. So we're just looking for it to pop into position there. As you can see, that does the trick. So OK to that. As you can see, everything else is aligned. So we now have the front tire on the go-kart, as you can see. And again, we could do the same kind of thing. We could just duplicate this tire over here. So let's just go into select that. Shift drag over here. I'm going to make a copy of it. Actually, let's make an instance of it. And we'll just flip it on Y. We'll put it roughly into the right kind of position because we don't have the rest of the hub here to align to. So there we are. There we have the basic tires on the go-kart. If you don't like them, you know, if you think they're too small, if you want to make them larger, more robust, it's very easy to do. You just go in, modify the shapes. We've actually made these two instances of each other. So now if I want to, I can just go down here, go into the top view. Let's say we wanted to make the front tires bigger. I can just turn off the lathes for now. And then I can just go down here, grab these vertices, pull this out here slightly, let's say. So let's leave these in place. Let's pull these out here a little bit bigger. There we are. We could move these in here slightly as well, so we get quite a lot larger tires, let's say, like that. And then we could just move these. These just need adjusting as well. Now, it's going to make the crenellations larger, but I think that's probably the easiest thing that we can do is just scale from a center point. So if we go to R, we're just going to scale these up here. So we have it roughly in the right position. You can see it's not symmetrical, so we're going to go like that and then move down here. As you can see. And now, if we turn on lathe, we've got that back. We'll do the same thing for that. And when we adjusted this, we also adjusted that tire at the same time, which is one of the beauties of instancing. And I think you can see that these tires actually look a lot better now. They look a bit more sort of in proportion with the whole go-kart. So maybe we could do the same kind of thing for the back here. So let me just make quick adjustments to these two. Just go into top mode. And easiest thing to do is to just delete that tire and that tire there. What I'll do is I'll just shift, drag that down here. It's going to be an instance. And I'm just going to shift, drag this over here. It's going to be another instance. But we're going to mirror it. And now I'm going to snap it into position. So I can just go snap on here. Okay. Put me into wireframe mode. Let's see if this fits on here. That's the inner rim. So let's just turn off the lathe for now. Pop that in there. You can see that fits. This needs to be adjusted now, but that's just easy. Just go in here. Oops. Let's go in here. Grab these vertices. Pull them up here so it fits around. That's cool. Do the same thing down here. Grab this tire. Move it down here and into position. You can just snap it on there. Make sure it fits in here. It should do. Pretty much. There we go. Turn her on. Check that out up there. Yeah, that looks fine as well. Go into perspective view. You can see that is now adjusted and is larger in proportion with the go-kart. And there we are. Then we have the wheels. Pretty cool, eh? Now we have the go-kart basically complete, and we're finished off with our modeling in splines in this particular DVD. We'll continue with the go-kart in the next DVD, where we'll add some elements to it using sub-Ds, and we'll also then finish off the entire series by going back to various elements on this go-kart and finessing them using a combination of methods. It's the last DVD in the series is called Sub-Ds and Combined Techniques, and that's because basically we're going in and using all of the techniques together, and that's the way that you usually model. You don't use lofts, edit meshing, edit mesh modifying, or modeling in isolation. You use all of the different techniques together to produce a final result. For now anyway, as I said, we're finished modeling with splines on this DVD. Let's move on to the next chapter, and we'll finish off by looking at how some of the spline tools and features can be used in animation.